It's 20 minutes to one. You're listening to your local station, 88.6 Plenty Valley FM, and this is Snez with Wellbeing Wednesdays. Let's talk about fats because this is one area where people are still genuinely confused. This is what I get. I get lots of questions, or actually, I don't even get a lot of questions about fat. What I find is I get a lot of opinions on what people think is the right fats to be eating, what should be avoided. And a lot of it is still a little bit confused because for decades we've been told that fat was bad, then suddenly fat was good, then carbs were bad, then seed oils were the enemy, and that's still a conversation. Then butter was back, and then it wasn't. So it's no wonder that it can be quite hard to know what to cook with, what to eat, or what to trust anymore, especially when it comes to fat. So I find that this information has probably varied the most over time. So today I wanted to just simplify fats properly and move away from the trends and without any extremes so that you can feel a little bit clearer, but also confident again, because we need to make sure that we are getting fats into our diet. And the thing is that we really need to get, I think the big picture here is that fats aren't optional. Your body needs fat to function. Fat supports our hormones, our brain, our nervous system. Some nutrients are absorbed and help to be transported throughout the body through fats. Satiety, which is a really interesting thing, which is that feeling of feeling satisfied with food, and even your mood are all impacted by and supported by fat. So if you remove fat completely, the body actually doesn't become healthier. It actually becomes quite stressed because a lot of those functions cannot continue to occur. And the key isn't fat it versus no fat. It's just about understanding which fats are the best ones, which ones we actually do need to genuinely avoid, and how much should we be having, when should we be having them, and just answering some of those basic questions. So let's break it down really simply so that you walk away going, okay, right, I know what I need to do on a day to day basis. So the first thing is to understand the three different types of fats. So the first fats that we need to be aware of are the unsaturated fats. So these are our protective fats. They support our heart health, they reduce inflammation, they help to keep your blood vessels nice and flexible. And they include two different types, monounsaturated fats. And I'm not going to go into the chemical structure of these. We don't need to understand to this degree, but we do need to understand that saturated fats are our protective fats, and they are made up of monounsaturated fats, if you are looking for them on labels and things like that, or polyunsaturated fats like so the monounsaturated fats are like your olive oils, your avocados, your nuts, and your polyunsaturated fats are like your omega-3s, which are found in fish, what's found in seeds and walnuts. And these fats are associated with lower cardiovascular risk and better metabolic health because we oftentimes associate fats with a higher cardiovascular risk and that they are actually bad for our heart. Then we've got the saturated fats. These most commonly come from animal foods, things like butter, cream, cheese, fatty cuts of meat, and some plant sources like coconut oil actually go into this category, but mainly saturated fats do come from animal sources. Saturated fats aren't automatically bad, but they do need to be consumed in moderation. I think that's really quite important. And in excess, they can raise our bad cholesterol in some people, especially when combined with a low fiber diet and high processed foods taken regularly. So that combination together is where these saturated fats become a bit of an issue. And then we have the fats that we genuinely want to limit, and these ones are our trans fats, our industrial seed oils that have been heavily processed. These are the fats that are most strongly linked with artery damage, which is the biggest concern, and inflammation in our body. So they're found in things such as deep fried foods, They're found in pastries, in biscuits, in packaged snacks, in margarines and hydrogenated oils. And these fats, sorry, the structure of your blood vessels, making your blood vessels more rigid, which is going to affect blood flow through your body and impact and put more pressure on your heart. So, over time, they do contribute to plaque formation in arteries, which is why they're so strongly linked to heart disease. So, now some of the things that we also need to understand, this is just a quick and helpful shortcut, which allows us to sort of understand what are some of the good fats and the unhealthy fats. We know we've got those three categories, but a really quick and easy way to understand them is if we're looking at plant fats versus animal fats. So, plant fats are plant-based fats like olive oil, avocado, nuts and seeds tend to be unsaturated and they tend to be protective. You'll also find a really good visual sort of point to understand with plant-based fats is, generally speaking, they are liquid at room temperature. So if you got a piece of paper and placed it on a kitchen bench with some olive oil and you left it there, whether it be a cold day or a warm day, it's going to be still liquid at room temperature. Whereas when we're looking at animal fats, so things like butter, cream, fatty meats, they're more saturated and they should be enjoyed but not relied on as your primary source of fat. So we need to limit the intake of these. And when we're looking at these fats at room temperature, they do become solid. So when we're thinking about that, that's the sort of way to determine fats that are quite good for us, which are the liquid fats, as opposed to those that become solid at room temperature. And this is where coconut oil kind of sits between the two of those and can be misunderstood. But this doesn't mean that animal fats and foods are bad. It just means that they're not where we want most of our daily fat to actually come from. So then I wanted to again address two different foods that I get asked about all the time. And I think that the information has changed over time mostly, and that's about egg yolks. So, are egg yolks healthy? And yes, they are healthy because egg yolks contain cholesterol, but we now know that dietary cholesterol doesn't directly translate to blood cholesterol for most people. And we also know that egg yolks do also contain choline, fat soluble vitamins, and nutrients that are quite essential for brain and for liver health. So there's a lot of good nutrients that are found in those egg yolks. So we definitely don't want to be throwing them out and we can consume them in a healthy part of our diet. Now, the full fat dairy, this is another one that has been discussed for a long time. And many years ago, it was go low fat dairy, low fat to everything. And in some circumstances, this still is a recommendation. But this is more of an individual decision based on any health risks that you may be dealing with at the moment. Some people tolerate dairy fat quite well, but then others don't. And from a health perspective, small amounts of full fat dairy can absolutely fit into a balanced diet, especially when the rest of the diet is, again, rich in fiber, vegetables, and healthy fats. And the issue isn't about a dollop of butter or yogurt. The issue is when saturated fats crowd out uh, fiber in our food, plants, and unsaturated fats. And then you're eating more of those dairy-based fats rather than consuming some of the plant-based fibers and nutrients and healthy fats. So it's just about making sure that we're combining our fats with other aspects, but then again, completely removing the unhealthy fats as best as we can. And the thing is with dairy, the reason why it can be a better choice, especially when it comes to things like yogurts, is that in the processing of trying to remove the unhealthy fats out of yogurts, what's happened instead is there's been additives added to thicken that aren't necessarily good for us, but also there's been the introduction of sugar to make the product taste better and to be more satiating. So now we're sort of starting to understand, well, let's not go fat-free yogurts. Let's actually consume that dairy, consume less of it, which means then we'll get less of a sugar intake as well. So, how much fat do we actually need? And the thing is with fat, different to protein, we don't need to count our grams of fat that we need to consume on a day to day basis. But a simple guide is to include a source of healthy fats at most of our meals, prioritizing things such as olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and fish throughout our day, and using saturated fats as accents to our dish, but not the main part of it. So, even if we're thinking of it as full fat, for example, full fat yogurt. So we don't want to just have a big bowl of yogurt. We want to be pairing that with other things. So what we could be doing is pairing that with fruit. We could be sprinkling it with some nuts and seeds, and all of a sudden it reduces the intake of that yogurt. But we're increasing the nutrients that we're getting through other sources of healthy fats, but also we're getting that fiber in through the fruit. So that's a way to think about it. So some examples of ways that we can use it is olive oil on vegetables. Maybe even after you've cooked them, we can drizzle them with some olive oil to get those healthy fats in. Definitely using olive oil in salads, avocado at breakfast or lunch. Nuts can be part of your main meals, such as your breakfast. They can be added to salads for lunch and dinner, or they can just be snacks. And I snacked on the way here a handful of walnuts and pumpkin seeds and then I just had a nectarine with that because they're just delicious at the moment and in season. So, and enjoying oily fish a couple of times a week is definitely going to see those healthy fats entering into the diet. So you may have heard as well, if you're sort of trying to judge quantities a bit better, using your thumb, the length and the thickness of your thumb as a serving. So getting that sort of segment of avocado, or if we're adding nuts and seeds, it's how many you could fit. You know, that might be 12 to 14 almonds in for a snack. So the other thing with healthy fats as well is, or consuming fats in a healthy way, is the timing. So, and it's really interesting to understand that consuming fats helps to slow the digestion because they do take longer to digest, and therefore they increase the satiety of your meals. So that means feeling more satisfied after we consume our food. So what we could then think about doing by knowing this information is trying to include them earlier on in the day, which can help reduce cravings later on in the day. So this is one of the reason that meals that include protein, fiber, and fat together are really so satisfying. And the biggest takeaway I think that I'd like to leave you with this information is that fat definitely is not something that needs to be avoided. It's not the enemy, and we need to make sure that instead that we include the healthy fats. And when you're choosing your fats, choose them intentionally, focusing on the quality, the plant-based. Make sure that we're consuming them in balance, consuming them through whole foods, and then they can become actually quite a powerful tool to give you the healthy fats that our body need, but also to allow you to feel fuller for longer, and to really contribute to long term health. So, if you aren't getting enough of some of those foods that I have mentioned that do come from healthy fats, then make sure that you start including them to your snacks, to lunches, and in any way that you can. So, say for example, this morning already, I've had coconut milk in my smoothie, and I have also had some avocado in my smoothie, and I've also had chia seeds in my smoothie. So, some really good quality fats there. I had, as I said, my nuts and my seeds along with my fruit for my snack on the way here. My afternoon snack is going to be a boiled egg. I already have it. And I do have some barramundi, which has the healthy fats in it. as well as, and that's all on a salad that's drizzled with olive oil. So you can see I'm definitely being quite intentional about getting those healthy fats in, and I definitely believe it contributes to the quality of my skin and my health as well. So